We turn back to the government that is now going to be sworn in, and we take a closer look at their manifesto. What should the priorities be for Modi 2.0 for the next 5 years? Take a look.
On the debate tonight, Prime Minister Modi all set to come back to power with an overwhelming majority, and with the BJP crossing the 300 mark all by itself. Earlier, going into the polls, the BJP manifesto had made a strong pitch for nationalism and national security. The BJP manifesto also promises to double farmer income by 2022, a basic pension scheme, and interest-free Kisan credit card loans. But the manifesto, however, stayed silent on any targets for job creation. Mirror now asks, what should be the priorities of the BJP government in the next 5 years? Which issues should the ruling party focus on? Let's debate.
Well, we're opening up Involve to you and our phone lines because obviously the exciting and optimistic part about it is this. We have a government that will be sworn in with tremendous power and majority in Lok Sabha and the ability to make decisions, tough decisions that need to be made at this point. There is the manifesto, and we'll go through what's in the manifesto, but there might be other things also on your mind that you believe that this government should focus on. The question we're asking is very simply this. What should be the top priority for Modi 2.0? What should they be focusing on? Joining us on the show, Sardar R.P. Singh, spokesperson of the BJP, Mohammad Khan for the Congress, Vivek Kaul, Badshah Sen, Rajesh Sidaram, Bharat Kumar Rao and Vinay Tiwari joining us in the studio. Gentlemen, good evening and thank you for joining us. Rajesh, I'll start with you. What, according to you, should be the top priorities for the Modi government 2.0?
I think it should be the economy. I think what has happened over the last few years of the Modi government is that most of the decisions related to the economy, the policies, even the statistics and the monetary policy, all of that has come under a cloud, because these are political decisions. These are decisions that have been taken with electoral gains in mind. Though that should be, I think, something that should go back to what it was. It should be run by professionals. It should be run by technocrats. It should be done without any politics involved in that, especially when it comes to the monetary policy. Also, the statistics that the government gives out, the big macroeconomic statistics, should also be something that should get back its credibility.
But the odd thing about India is that we're always in an election. So now there's Maharashtra, there's Haryana, like we were just talking about. There's constantly some sort of state election, which means that there'll constantly be an electoral sort of priority weighing in on decision making.
Well, but I think there should be a disconnect because this is having a serious impact on the economy. You are reporting some numbers which the foreign investors don't trust fully. You've got big automobile companies that are cutting production. You even have HUL, which is reporting quarter profits which are 2-year lows or some lows that are coming through, which clearly means the economy is not as healthy as the statistics are suggesting. So whatever questions are being asked, all doubts should be put to rest. And I think we should get back the credibility among international investors and international institutions for the statistics that we put out. And I think the biggest thing is to disconnect monetary economic policy making from the politics, especially electoral politics. The second thing, of course, is the jobs. Because if you believe the NSSO data that came in, of which of course has been denied by the government, we are in a very desperate situation, and there's not enough being done to address that. Of course, there's a lot of
so technically those two points sort of roll into each other because it goes back to credibility on data that you said, and it also goes back to separating economic decisions from the government, because there was a tendency to take everything personally and defend it, and as a result we perhaps denied the existence of the problems and didn't get around to solving them at all.
Sure. And my third priority, I think, would be on the agrarian crisis. Tough decisions have to be taken. Right now, what we have on this is doubling incomes and things like that. But how do you get there? That's something, there has to be a roadmap to that. Clearly, you cannot say that we will increase the minimum support price and the farmers take their produce to the mandi and they don't have the money to buy it. So there has to be more than just doles and sops. It will have to be something which is long-term,
Yes.
something which will be a bit of a bitter pill initially, but which will get long-term gains, which may not initially get you electoral dividends, but it will get big dividends in the
So let's just discuss your three points that you've brought in. So this is Rajesh Sundaram's top 3 priorities for the new government: the economy and data and the integrity of our data, jobs and the agricultural crisis. As far as employment is concerned, the BJP 2019 manifesto, it said we will guarantee 50% loan amount to female entrepreneurs, 25% to male entrepreneurs, collateral-free credit of up to 50 lakh to entrepreneurs. And the word entrepreneur is being used extensively. So obviously this self-employment and generate employment yourselves, don't wait for us to give you a job, is something that the party believes quite strongly in. Sardar R.P. Singh, Mr. Singh, your comments or your response to this: economy, jobs and agricultural crisis, with a focus on perhaps bringing credibility back to our data. Is this a priority for the new government, and if so, how?
More than that, you missed on where we started with. That's the internal security and ensuring that borders are safe and good. That's the much bigger concern, and that is the concern for the country and the government also. Can I? And also, coming back to your issue of job and data of the job, see, there has been a certain fault in compiling this data. Can I, sir, please?
No, sorry,
I don't appreciate
he can hear you, sir. Yes, go ahead. No,
I
Mr.
never
Singh.
interrupted when someone was speaking.
No one was interrupting
I could have
you,
interrupted thrice.
Yes, go
and
ahead.
I can also do what.
Oh dear. No, sorry. They were just talking amongst themselves. They weren't interrupting you. Go ahead,
And
Mr.
if you have
Singh.
problem, and if, so next time call us in the studio. Then I'll do also. I'll have
You're
something
always
to what
welcome
they're
in our
talking
studio,
also.
Mr. Singh.
Don't ask us to do the debate from home. We can't come to the studio. No, please, thank you. So the issue is that as far data go, there is some big fault in the data compilation and how the data is compiled together, and then the corrective path will be taken. Because if you go and ask a person, do you have a government job or do you have a job or are you employed? There's a difference. And that's the difference which has to be underlined and which has to be taken care. If you ask me a job, I said I would have a job. But are you employed? Yes, I'm employed. So there's a difference. And gradually there's a shift worldwide toward employment and self-employment. I mean, there's a shift happening, and our thrust is on that. Yes, people need to be self-employed. Not only self-employed, they need to generate employment. Once they're self-employed, they need to work and generate employment for others also. That's one point. Secondly, as for agrarian crisis, we understand and we appreciate, and then government is know of what to do, and then wait for another 3 months. There's a complete policy which will declare as far as the agrarian crisis goes, and then government is going to take big steps on resolving the farmers' issues and agrarian crisis. As for other issues, economy, our economy was at number 11 and today we are among the 6, and we have to ensure that we grow up and do better on the economic ranking in the world. From 6 we can go to 5 and gradually targeting at 3, but ensuring that we reach at the level 5 and among the first 5 countries as far as economy go. But the bigger issue is when we are planning to ensure that we spend more on infrastructure. I mean, my friend was talking that there's how do you create job when you spend more on infrastructure, when roads are being more roads are being built, when you need more hospitals for all those 50 crore people who are being given health insurance to the Prime Minister's scheme. So obviously you need more hospitals, you need more paramedical staff also there, you need doctors also there, and to build those hospitals you need cement and iron also, steel also there for that regard. So this is a process, and then you spend in infrastructure and spend humongously on infrastructure, and then that will create a lot of jobs and that will take the economy further also. But the bigger concern is that how do we ensure that the nation is safe, the borders are safe, and then the issue of the internal security is taken care. That's going to be priority.
Rajesh?
See, of course, there is the simple Keynesian model that you're talking about, infrastructure and all of that. But of course, there are issues related to that. There are, simple solutions that have worked elsewhere. Would they necessarily work here? But I think the bigger point is to have the data, which is beyond doubt, and also I think policy that is made which does not have any politics involved in that. You know, for instance, institutions like the RBI, which are run by more of the experts, economists, renowned ones, and also you know, even within those making macroeconomic policies, people of a very high caliber who can take decisions and know implications. For instance, the demonetization decision, if it were referred to a panel of experts, international experts on the economy, perhaps the Indian economy today would be in a much better position.
So seeking the right advice from those who are not in any way political but are qualified to advise the government on economy. Vivek, do you want to comment on these three things: economy, jobs, and agrarian crisis, and of course data? Mr. Singh, one second, Mr. Singh. Let me just bring in a couple of more voices, and I'll come back to you. Vivek, go ahead.
I think my first concern is
because you referred back to him. You referred my points back to him. The only point is about the demonetization. I mean, and then people have voted back us on even on demonetization. Please.
Okay, so all right. Fair enough. Okay, we heard you well. Vivek.
Okay, I think my first thing is that they should find a full-time finance minister, not someone, you know, you can't keep changing a finance minister every 2-3 months. And a finance minister should be a finance minister. He should not be a defense minister, a railway minister, a corporate affairs minister, a BJP spokesperson, a BJP firefighter, a BJP lawyer. He should be a finance minister. That's the first thing. The second thing is, you know, I think as far as employment goes, giving out money is the easier part. You know, you can give out 25 lakh, 50 lakh, mudra loan, this loan, that loan. The bigger problem in India is the fact that people are not able to do business the way they want to. Now, what do I mean by that? You know, if you look at the manufacturing firms in India, we either have firms which have 0 to 49 people or have firms which have more than 250 people. Now, why is that? That is because, you know, the moment you go from 49 to 50, the laws, the rules, the regulations that hit you are so many and so complicated that it's not worth the trouble of growing. So firms sort of have limited ambitions. So giving money is fine, but you know, we need to seriously take a relook at our labor laws and have two sets of labor laws, one for the big firms which employ more than 250 people and one for the smaller firms which employ either less than 50 people or less than 250 people. As far as agriculture goes, see, the basic problem with agriculture is, you know, you can give all the doles, you can sort of raise the minimum support price every year and all that. That's not going to help. The basic problem with agriculture is the fact that way too many people are dependent on it. Now, I'll just give you a very simple number. In 2004, 2005, agriculture constituted around 21-22% of the economy. Now it's down to around 13%. Yes. Okay? Whereas the number of people dependent on the sector are more or less the same. As a percentage of the population. You know, so what is happening is that, you know, while the pie is not really expanding, the number of people dependent on it are the same. So historically, if you look at...
Do you see Manrega as a solution to that?
Not really. See, Manrega is a... See, these are all very poor solutions. These are band-aids. Okay, what you require is some deep surgery. Now, the solution to agriculture is, one, you need to open up the agriculture markets. The farmer has to come out of the dependency on the APMC, which is the Agriculture Produce Market Committee. He should be able to sell his produce the way he wants to, and people should also be able to buy it from him the way you need to let the market work, which has not happened. The other big thing is, if you look at the history of economics, countries which have gone from being developing to becoming developed have essentially, you know, had people moving from farming into construction and real estate. Now, the problem in India is that our real estate sector is in a deep mess because, you know, prices are extremely high. So there are no new projects. There are very few new projects being launched, and hence employment is not happening. Now, this can only be cleaned up if, you know, if the political parties and the government get together and they start with cleaning up political finance, which is not going to happen. The other big thing is construction, which is where the government can do a lot because, you know, India still needs better physical infrastructure. Now, the question is, where is the money going to come from? You know, the money is basically should come from selling all these central public sector enterprises, which are basically, a lot of them are useless, and they have a lot of land. So other than, you know, unlocking capital, so there is almost 13 lakh crore of capital.
So let me just get some responses on that, and then I'll come back to you. So you basically said labor laws you need to focus on. You need to focus on agriculture by basically removing all of the you know, the laws that contain the agriculture market.
Basically, the government should be doing, you know, 5-6 of the big things, and then, leaving everything else. It should be regulating rather than, trying to have its finger everywhere. So.
All right, Mohammad Khan of the Congress joins us as well. Mohammad Khan, what according to the Congress party are the priorities that this government should have right now? Yes, good evening.
Okay, so first of all, let me congratulate my friend R.P. Singh Saab. Congratulations, R.P. Singh Saab, to you and Mr. Modi. Joined for another 5 years, and as Faye is demonstrating by way of this debate, a government coming into its second term does not seem to have a honeymoon period. So let's get straight to it. I love the points that the economist on the panel, Ramesh ji, was making. I want to add to that.
Well, there's Rajesh Sundaram and Vivek Kaul who have spoken. There's no Ramesh though.
Because Rajesh ji.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes. Sorry, Rajesh ji. I'll just build upon Rajesh ji's points. First, the numbers that we are putting out. Why are they so dubious now? I just know that Geeta Gopinath, during the course of the elections, Geeta Gopinath, she's one of the chief economists of the IMF, she cautioned us about how we present our data, about the hygiene of our data, R.P. Singh Saab. That is very worrying. I would also be worried about the fact that since those two senior officers of the NSSO resigned, I would like to know how you guys have ameliorated or fixed that problem. Rajesh ji also spoke about car sales. If I'm not mistaken, sir, car sales are at an 8-year low. This was a story that unfortunately did not receive the attention it should have received because elections were on. But now I must point out, this is a very keen indicator of middle class growth, and if it's fallen to an 8-year low, then we are indeed in for very worrying times. The third point is the index of industrial production, R.P. Singh Saab, is in the negative. It's in the negative, sir, as of last month. Again, you will be in for some tough times with regard to this. I'll conclude with just 2 points. R.P. Singh Saab said national security is our first priority. Of course, R.P. Singh Saab, as it should be. So therefore, let us get down to the business of investigating and determining how that 300 kgs of RDX got into Pulwama, and let's hold someone accountable for the deaths of those 40 brave soldiers who won you this election, if I may add. Now, I'll conclude by saying only one thing, sir. Sir, it is an enormous responsibility on your shoulders, and I bid you well in your celebrations, but eternal vigilance is the cost of liberty. So here we are as an opposition, and we will do our job.
Can I just make a...
Yes.
Okay, so, there is this thing that, when the NSSO survey is carried out, it also includes self-employed in it. It's not like, if you say you are self-employed, they'll say that you are unemployed.
Yes.
So, I mean, because
so I just,
the BJP
both
spokesperson
NSSO and the CMI, we had these questions asked on the channel where they basically said they go into perhaps the largest sample in the world in India and ask people in the house, what do you do? Not are you employed, are you not? What do you do? How many days of the week, months, year do you work? What do you get paid per day? And so that includes everyone. Self-employed, farmers,
so it also
daily wage
includes
laborers.
Ola and Uber drivers, if I may
Yes,
say.
it also includes Ola and Uber
this
drivers.
is something that has the, the credibility is accepted internationally for decades now. Right from the time Mahal Novis and other great people set up these models to now, it's never been brought into question, really.
Yes. So to say that it doesn't capture the unofficial or the unemployed or the daily wage would not be true. It would not be true. Let me just open this, Mr. Raut, what is your priority for this government?
Yes, I have gone through the manifesto more than once in last 10 days. What my set of priorities, they are more related to consensus. They cannot be done by BJP itself. Though as the ruling party, BJP will have to take initiative, lead in getting them passed. Number one is that, as this was mentioned here earlier, because of elections after elections, 4 years of the 5-year term goes in one or the other election. Either parliament election, then assembly elections, legislative council elections, local self-government elections, gram panchayats and all that. So every time the election is announced, in that area the work is hampered. This policy making cannot be done, or if the policy making is done, that is basically to appease the voters on the whole or voters at the local level. So that a code of conduct comes in picture. So therefore, there should be a consensus that consider 1 year, perhaps it will not, 1 year as election year.
Yes.
See now 2019 we are in May, by December finish all elections.
Yes.
And let the nation function for the next 4 years. So at least that will go unabated.
So one nation, one election.
1 year, 1 year, one election. All elections,
Yes.
not one election. All elections in 1 year. So if that is, I think this could be out of box. This could come under criticism.
Yeah.
I don't know if practical or not practical, but we should work on this. Number 2, in my opinion, is zero tolerance for against terrorism and extremism.
Yes.
Because apart from the outside enemies, our government, our people, our society is hampered and bothered about the internal terrorism, terrorism in the name of religion, terrorism in the name of regions, terrorism in various aspects, and also intolerance. So, and that we have been seeing this now and again, whether it is cow, whether it is honor killing. So this intolerance also has to be curbed by law.
So you're saying the law should act swiftly and harshly when there is a case of
new law should be made,
yes,
which will be more stringent. And number 3 is a fundamental change,
yes,
in our education policy.
Yes.
What has happened? We have inherited our education policy from the Raj. Now Raj is gone 70 years ago. However, the same education policy we are still following. And by doing this, why Britishers gave this education system to us? Because they didn't want independent thinking people. They wanted a Babu to run the government from 17,000 kilometers away. So we are running the same system. We are not creating people who can think on their own. So there has to be a different education system which is conducive to Indian atmosphere, to Indian aspirations, to Indian resolutions. And if that type of system is created, I think we'll have better education. On that, let me say, again, now we are in independent India.
Yes.
Lokmanya Tilak, he started the education system here. He started New English School here.
Yes.
To have Swadeshi education.
Yes.
During British Raj, he started Swadeshi education, that the influence of the British, the foreigners, should not be on our education system. Now what is happening? Instead of our SSCs, we are going in American schools. We are. I'm not against English medium per se, but the entire system. Our boys do not know who was Shivaji, who was Rana Pratap, who was Akbar, but they know who is there in America, who is there in France. They would know Shakespeare, but would not know Ramayana. So I think there has to be a radical change in the education system itself. Unless that happens, we will not have independent India.
Anyone want to comment on that?
Yeah.
Yes.
I wanted to make an even more basic point about our education system. So what happens is, the right to education, in the right to education, by class 1, the reading lessons are all gone. Okay.
Yes.
Now we need to realize that the children come from a very reading deficient environment. A lot of them are probably the first generation or the second generation who's going to school for the first time. So the entire, focus in right to education, and there is even a clause in it which says that the teacher has to complete the syllabus. So instead of, the teacher completing the syllabus, at least the focus in the first 2 to 3 years should be on 3 things. The ability to develop an ability to read, to develop an ability to write, and to develop an ability to do basic mathematics, which is not happening. The other big problem with RTE is that there are no exams till class 8. So there is this whole generation which has gone through our education system, and there is an estimate of around 10 crore people, without giving exams and without even having the basic learning systems in place. So,
actually, the RTE has another problem, which is that the students get up to the 9th standard, and after that, they are no longer entitled to right to education because they've hit a certain age. And then they are asked, this is happening in Delhi now because it's the first generation that's reached that age, they're asked to pay full fees.
Yes.
Which they can't afford to do, which is why they're in the system.
And there is this great fear of exams which is developing. I know students who are, who are otherwise very good, but because they have never written exams,
they're terrified.
Yeah.
All right, anyone else wants to? Yes.
This thing about, lynching and a more inclusive kind of environment, I think the laws are already there. We have enough provisions in the CRPC to against lynching and other things.
But should there be, and I've wondered about this, should there be perhaps a hate crime law? Like in the West, for example, if there's assault and there's assault as a hate crime, which attracts a larger sentence.
The issue really is about the law not being enforced equally.
Okay.
I think we have enough provisions in the CRPC for hate laws, for lynchings, for everything. But I think what certain sections of the community feel is that the law is not enforced equally for
everyone.
All. I think.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, there are adequate. I think we have more laws than we need actually. So we don't need more laws. We need less laws. There are enough IPCs full of sections which include hate as well. Enmity between caste, between religion, discrimination, all of that is available. But I have a very different list, and that list I'm saying because a majority government lasts 5 years necessarily. So the impact of what they do is far-reaching, and it should last far-reaching. For me, and I'm saying this in all seriousness, priority number one is a point from their manifesto, which is to ensure water supply to every single household in this country. In the next 10 years, you are running into a situation where there'll be water wars in this country. There is a serious water supply problem, both in urban India as well as rural India. In urban India, people have resources, so they have outsourced their water supply. But in rural India, there is enormous distress over lack of drinking water.
Also, urban India is stealing from rural India.
And it's stealing from rural. So there is an
that's where the
inequitable
water is coming
distribution,
from.
and it's there in their manifesto, which I'm picking up from there. That's one. Two, they have written a point which says that they will work towards increasing female participation in the workforce. In my mind, there is no quantifiable data for it perhaps, but the demographic dividend of having more women in the workforce is enormous. It changes the way households function, it changes the way the economy functions, and it changes the way the efficiency works.
Yes.
I think the government's third priority should be definitely to look at judicial reforms, because a lot of things in this country are stuck because they're at the courts and they're sub judice. And the slow speed of delivery of justice is blocking reforms, it is blocking economy, it is blocking a whole lot of things, including things like lynching and crime, because everything goes to court and it just drags on for years and years. The fourth, in my opinion, is a serious attempt, which they've again said, to lower the tax base and widen it, because the resources for all of this that you want to do will come from there. And without that, it's always going to be about either do I choose this or I choose that. And the last thing is, of course, urban infrastructure, because that is collapsing in many parts. And there is an urgent need to rebuild our cities, which are increasingly going to become burst because there is a lot of migration from rural to urban.
Mr. Sen?
Well, I take off from 2 points. One is that Mr. Modi, in his Thanksgiving address at the BJP headquarters yesterday, said that this entire caste-based view of India has to go, and that there's going to be only two castes.
Yes.
The poor castes and those castes who are and those who are helping.
Yes.
The poor castes get over their poverty. That's one. The second point is, we've all often talked about this and the previous election as a presidential form of election. I wish it was in one sense. Then this would be Mr. Modi's last term, because in the US presidential election they get only 2 terms. And then, and I'm not trying to get rid of Mr. Modi.
Yes.
I'm saying then he could seriously do his work, because then it didn't matter to him to win elections or not.
Yes.
The reason why the president has 2 terms in the US is in the second term the president tries to do as much as he can for the country at large, rather than win this vote or that vote or this section. So, of course, that's not going to happen, even though this is maybe a presidential form of government.
But is the presidential form of government healthy really for India?
No.
For such a diverse country, it's a little dangerous.
The only healthy part of it is that
radical difference between.
Yeah, of course. I was not suggesting that. This was not my suggestion. I was just saying that the one good thing about that is you have a long-term view.
Okay.
The incumbent has a long-term view, and then he goes under a blaze of glory. You see. So anyway, I now look at. My basic focus is more or less the economy. I mean, is the economy stupid is a phrase which has been used quite often. And it was the economy which got neglected in this election, as in many other elections, for more emotive things like national security, for terrorism and so on. But if we go back and look at the economy, it's in a shambles. If we were to divide all of us Indians into 2, there would be earning Indians and consuming Indians.
Yes.
Often they are the same.
Yes.
Often they are the same. In fact, always they are the same. So if
we have the luxury of having more earning than just consuming, which means we have fewer retired people than the ones actually in the workforce
but
at
then
this
we
point.
have a lot of consuming people who don't earn. The women, for instance.
Yes.
They're not earning directly because they're not allowed to earn.
Because they're not allowed to earn. Yes.
So the point is, so that at one level, we are all talking about how our economy is sluggish because car sales are going down, two-wheeler sales are going down, air conditioner sales. Now, I ask you, how many people are consuming this? What percentage of the Indian population are consumers of cars, two-wheelers and air conditioners? About 15%. 15, Vivek might correct me, maybe 20%. So if we are focused on, our economy is focused on what that 15% is doing, and we are not focused on what 1 billion plus people are doing, then there's a mismatch, there's a skew.
But I do believe the problem, car sales is where it starts. It then goes into consumer durables, which is your air conditioner.
HUL, that means toothpaste, and soap is also not being
consumed. Soap is also, that's the last, that's in fact the last
As of now, in recent times, the media has tended to focus on these 2 or 3.
So, if I may. So basically, see, it starts with the car sales because car is, after the house, is the most expensive item. And then it sort of trickles down. And then so now we have a stage where, companies like HUL are saying that toothpaste sales growth is slowing down. Okay. So that is an indicator.
I'm going to link that. That's what I was trying. I'm going to link the consumption patterns, toothpaste, for example, with the earning patterns. A very sizable section of the populace, one way or the other, is dependent on agriculture. And to sort out this employed versus self-employed versus most of agriculture is self-employed.
Yes.
And about 30% of agriculture is self-employed. 70% of agriculture is agricultural labor who move from one place to the other, getting employed by farmers or by real estate agencies and so on. So, since agriculture is shrinking, its a percentage in the economy is shrinking, there has to be a method in which toothpaste sales can grow in rural India, because rural India can afford toothpaste, to buy toothpaste if they're employed.
Yes.
If they're not employed,
so you're saying focus on employment.
So focus on employment, focus on mass employment, focus on employment which generates huge activity and which is useful.
Yes.
So infrastructure development is one very clear thing. That 100, what is the figure again?
100 lakh crores.
100 lakh crores. 100 lakh crores, and I'm now not going into how they will raise the 100 lakh crores. I would suggest there would be a public-private partnership in all these projects.
Because the government spending 100 lakh crores is not possible.
It's not possible. So private, yes, not
even a public-private partnership. And
it's
a little.
Float
the
bonds,
number is a little big. So.
Yes, float bonds, go a little bit into debt, whatever it is. The point is that would then generate enough toothpaste consumers who would be basically earning enough to be able to consume toothpaste.
But yes, so just as a clarification, and normally business journalists are the ones who do this, the reason why the car sales, then scooter sales actually is the first one that's looked at, scooter, car, tractor, and then consumer durables, and then fast-moving consumer goods, is because the top line is discretionary. So if you're not doing very well, you will say, "Abhi nahi khareedte, baad mein khareedte."
Yes, of course.
That's how it will fall.
Yes.
Then you do that with your ACs and your washing machines and your TVs. It's really when things get really bad that you stop buying soap and toothpaste, and you say that I will only buy a sachet.
I'm talking about those who are not even able to buy soap and toothpaste without having considered the idea that should I buy soap or a car or so on. So
but the fact that HUL's revenue is going down clearly means that there are many more people now who can't afford toothpaste and soap, and they're cutting down on that, which is worrying. Yeah.
Therefore, you need to put this in perspective. You need to look at the rural sector, the agrarian sector, where there's joblessness, because it's not expanding, it's shrinking. I think
so basically, I mean, I think what you're saying right now ties in what a lot of others have said, which is basically if you provide growth in the rural sector and employment, then people will not move to the cities, like when I pointed out, that they will have jobs, they will not be dependent on agriculture. The problem of the pressure on agriculture that Vivek pointed out will also come down. But you wanted to say something, Vivek?
I just wanted to make 2 quick points. One is, when I said about, judicial reforms, Now, the problem is very, very simple. You know, why there are so many cases in India is because the government is the biggest litigator. Okay, so the decision to litigate is made at the smallest level, and the decision not to litigate is made at the highest level. So this is an anomaly that needs to be corrected. The moment it is corrected, the pressure on our courts will come down dramatically. The second point is on...
So 1 second, before you bring in more points, I just want to bring in Mr. R.P. Singh to respond because बहुत काम सुना लिया उनको. Mr. Singh, I do know that you were listening carefully and everyone's made a list. Just to go over and remind you, labor laws, agriculture, full-time finance minister. Vinay talked about judicial reforms, water. Mr. Raut talked about specifically being very careful and hard on intolerance and crime related to intolerance, and also perhaps one nation, 1 year, 1 election, and Badshah Sen talking about rural development and infrastructure that will then lead to solving a lot of our problems. I just want to add one thing. I don't have a full list. Air pollution, I believe, will be our biggest challenge, and we're not looking at it strongly enough. India has 9 out of the 10 most polluted cities in the world, and it's killing our children, and that's something we should consider because there's no rich or poor or caste system in air pollution. It kills us all. Mr. Singh, I suppose I can't expect you to answer all of these things, but is the government looking into advisors specifically for the economy, for development, for development in rural India? Will you be bringing advisors on board?
Faye, thank you for revising the complete list. You missed on the water part. I mean, someone very empathetically mentioned the water also in that complete list. But I was hearing, I mean, your panelists were talking about the toothpaste. Sir, there's a report contrary to the report of Hindustan Liver, which is in my hand, which I've just Googled and searched, which talks about that Hindustan Liver sales has come down, Patanjali sales are doubled in that period. So obviously they will be pinched and they can manipulate and work out data as per the international, the big multinationals can work out that. I never intervene, please. I mean, I'm shocked that you such all learned people. I mean, all of you spoke all this period, I never uttered a word. So it's data which suits whichever company. Multinationals, they can generate data, they can create data, and then they can manipulate data. So with the fact that there's another data which shows otherwise. But coming back to the issues, yes, I accept that there can be advisors on the system which can advise government on various parts and on various subjects as required be. But I differ here that there was a full-time finance minister. Mr. Jaitley was a full-time finance minister, except a small part when his health was not doing well for a certain period. That will in the Faye again. But all bigger policy decisions, right from demonetization to mudra loans to opening up the banking system to the poorest of poorest. I mean, to revising the income tax rates, all decisions were taken by this government, and all the hard decisions were taken by this government. When I was hearing someone that since it's a complete mandate, will the government take the decisions now? I mean, earlier also government has not bothered. It was a presidential government or not the presidential government. We are into a different democratic system, not a presidential democratic system. So call is being taken by the government, and then harshest decisions were taken, and certain decisions were, yes, left out because of certain other reasons, but not because of that any political compulsions. So, and then government, the Prime Minister Modi and his team, his cabinet is capable enough to take call and take decisions. And again, how can you say this is second term of the Prime Minister? We can go for third term for him also. I mean, if he performs well in this term also, as he did in first term, and he has been given bigger mandate this time on the work which he has done. So he can look for another term after doing, and he is known for taking hard decisions and decisions which are good for economy without keeping in mind the political gains or electoral gains. People told us that one of your panelists said spoke about demonetization. We had elections after demonetization. We won elections after demonetization. People, the opposition raised so much issue on GST, Gabbar Singh tax and all. And people still voted. I mean, I remember immediately after so-called Gabbar Singh tax, there was an election in Gujarat, and we won marvelously well in Surat also. So the issue is that this government is capable of, this Prime Minister Modi, the cabinet is capable of taking hard decisions.
I'm going to open this up now. I'm going to open this up to the panel to respond to it.
Take this economy further. Can I come to, another second, Faye?
Okay. Another second, go ahead.
Another second. And as far country security goes, that will stay the top priority, because we can do whatever we can, but if we are not secure, our lives are not secure, then nothing works.
Right, okay. So let me open this up. First of all, the HUL data, I just want to point out, HUL is compelled by the stock exchange to release data on its own performance to the stock exchange, and it cannot lie about it. That would be a felony and that would be punishable by law. So I don't believe HUL would purposely play down its own numbers.
I not said HUL is lying. I said there's the data of Patanjali also.
There are articles here which say that Patanjali has plunged to 5-year low because of poor supply chain. So that's not technically the same reason, but they are also down.
Yes. Let's just open this up. Anyone who wants to come in.
The thing is this, see, Patanjali is an unlisted company.
Yes.
They don't need to declare data regularly. HUL needs to. So as of now, the annual sales of Patanjali which are available are as of March 2018. So we don't know.
Yes.
Okay. And in the March 2018 sales, the sales were down 10% year on year.
Okay. You also respond to the fact that he did say that Mr. Jaitley is a full-time finance minister, except when he was unwell.
Exactly. I'm sorry, you are misquoting it. I have a data which says other way around.
Because, okay, never mind.
I'm not misquoting anything, sir. So, okay. So, Mr. Jaitley was not a full-time finance minister because he was...
I'm saying so, Record. I have a data which says that...
Okay, quote your data. Where is your data from?
Which says other way around. I mean, that can be your source of data. My source of data says Patanjali is
What's your source? What's your source?
No, sir, it's not about source. Patanjali March 2000 numbers, 2019 numbers cannot be available. I mean, it's not possible. So whatever your source is, I don't know, but March 2019...
Sir, I'm talking about the previous sales also.
That's what he's saying.
Which is what I'm saying.
So you're both saying the same thing. Let's just move forward, otherwise we'll run out of time. Mr. Jaitley, you were coming to Mr. Jaitley.
Yeah, so Mr. Jaitley was not a full-time finance minister because he was also defense minister in between. Piyush Goyal, along with being finance minister, was also coal minister.
Very small period,
he was also railway minister. So all I'm trying to say is that you need a full-time finance minister who is not, because coal in itself is a huge...
Okay. I also want to point out, Vinay, if you want to just come in on this, it's very, very dangerous to measure the success of economic decisions based on your election results.
Exactly.
In fact, this is what was being said, where you have to make economic decisions that are entirely independent of your politics. To say that we won an election immediately after does not prove that your decision was right. Right?
No, absolutely. There is nowhere in the world, there is no correlation between the success of a particular policy necessarily. Yes, there can be some policies which impact a person so much that they decide to punish the government for it. Very obviously, the electorate in this case has decided not to punish Mr. Modi for demonetization. But on an objective scale, the jury is out, and not just the jury is out, there is almost near consensus that demonetization's benefits have not accrued in the way that it was being sold. It's good that the public has moved on and have decided to forgive the government for it and actually chosen it with better majority. There's nothing wrong with that. But there is no correlation between a policy decision and an electoral outcome.
Mr. Rao.
Yes, in theory that should be so.
Yes.
But in the situation where our
Sitting
government
in a TV studio, we decide the policies and we decide the outcome of the policies.
Okay, Mr. Rao.
Yeah. In theory, yes, that should be the ideal situation. However, in a situation where governments are elected through people, this is not practical. Because, for example, now British Prime Minister, who is perhaps going in 2 days' time, she has to go because of her economic policy.
Yes.
Once Margaret Thatcher had to resign because of her economic policy.
Yes.
So you cannot separate economic policies from the
But let me also point out that a lot of the impact of demonetization is still playing out.
Yeah.
We might want to put it behind us, but it's not behind us just yet. I just want to, 1 second, give an opportunity to Mohammad Khan to respond. Mohammad Khan, a lot of very interesting things have been brought up by the panel, and I really hope someone was taking these things down because it's really a path forward for India. Go ahead.
Well, I would only say the following to RP Singh Sahab. Some really fantastic suggestions have been made by the panel. Some key areas of concern have been pointed out. RP Singh Sahab, you are elected to govern. So I think, I'm certain you will get down to the business of that. I would also say, RP Singh Sahab, that employment, as two panelists said, is has to be your foremost concern. Do you know Maharashtra, I think Faye, you did a debate on this also, Maharashtra is facing one of the worst periods of agrarian drought. I think the Prime Minister should tour those areas as well and come up with a special package for the farmers. That should be your first priority at this moment, sir. The second priority should be, of course, to get our economy back on track. And the third thing I forgot to say entirely is that I believe during the course of these elections, we severed our ties with Iran to the extent that we are not going to be purchasing oil from them anymore. I think that will lead to a severe bump in oil prices for the common man. So can you tell us if there are any plans with regard to that, or you have a roadmap? That's all.
Yes, there's another thing that one of our audience members have asked as well. GST under, fuel under GST, which would also, but it needs a consensus from all of the state governments.
The problem with fuel under GST is that then the government revenues will go for a toss totally.
Yes, and we perhaps can't afford it.
It's not possible.
While we've run out of time, I also want to promise that we will keep doing this, and I do believe that we should also do this ministry-wise, where we can perhaps list out for every ministry what the priorities ideally should be, and so we can track that then as a channel going forward, ministry-wise, what the priorities ought to be. If I'm allowed, I just want to put out a couple of things. I believe, like I said earlier, air pollution should be something that we tackle right now on a national policy point of view, where we don't get emotional about the choices and the decisions that need to be made, but we put addressing air pollution right on top on our list. The second, I agree with water. Water scarcity is a serious problem, so it's not about putting a pipe into everybody's house and supplying them with water. While that's a good thing, where is the water it's going to come from? We've run out of water. Our groundwater tables have hit zero in most of rural India. Maharashtra is an example that should be scary for a lot of people. Other parts of the world like California and South Africa should also serve as examples of what happens when we're not careful about water. My third submission is healthcare and education. We have the laws, we have a free and public healthcare and education. We have the money, we're already spending the money. It's the quality that is a problem. For someone who is within a certain level of economic strata, an illness bankrupts a family. The lack of proper education limits their choices for growth. If we can improve the public free education and healthcare that we offer to our population, and examples are available. Delhi, for example, managed to improve the quality of public education. We should study that model and replicate it in other parts of the country. If everyone in our country got good education and got good healthcare, they could then use their resources to improve the quality of their lives. Thanks for watching.